Hello, this is the 286th edition of Catch of the Day, available on the Branch Talk YouTube channel. Today we're going to continue reading from a book written by Trent Wilde entitled The King of Crisis in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Starting at the bottom of page 852, it says, "If the Hebrews had continued to obey God after they left Egypt, and had kept his righteous law, he would have gone before them and prospered them, and made them always a terror to the heathen nations around them. But they so often followed their own rebellious hearts, and departed from God, and went into idolatry, that he suffered them to be overcome by other nations, to humble and punish them. When in their affliction they cried unto God, he always heard them, and raised them up a ruler to deliver them from their enemies. They were so blinded they did not acknowledge that it was their sins which had caused God to depart from them, and leave them weak and a prey to their enemies. But they reasoned that it was because they had no one invested with kingly authority to command the armies of Israel. They had not kept in grateful remembrance the many instances God had given them of his care and great love, but often distrusted his goodness and mercy." 4 ASG 66:1. God had raised up Samuel to judge Israel. He was honored by all the people. God was to be acknowledged as their great head, yet he designated their rulers and imbued them with his spirit, and communicated his will to them through his angels, that they might instruct the people. 4 ASG 67.1. God was angry with his people because they demanded a king. He gave them a king in his wrath, yet he bade Samuel to tell the people faithfully the manner of the kings of the nations around them, that they would not be as a judge of difficulties of church and state, to instruct them in the ways of the Lord, like their rulers, that their king would be exalted and would require kingly honors, and would exact a heavy tax or tribute, that they would be oppressed, and that God would not manifest to them his mighty power as in Egypt to deliver them. But when they should cry unto him in their distress, he would not hear them. 4 ASG 67.2. They had possessed greater courage and confidence while they had God-fearing rulers to instruct and lead them, for they obtained counsel direct from God, and it was like being led by God himself. Now they realized that they were commanded by an erring king, who could not save them in their distress. 4 ASG 69:1. Do you realize that we, as Adventists, are presently being commanded by an erring king? God allowed Israel to experience what it was like to have an earthly ruler, so that they would realize how much better it was to be ruled by God through a prophet. Hosea's message called them to that realization. Sadly, they failed to learn that lesson. God forbid we make the same mistake. As you may all understand by now, 1901 was a key year in the history of Adventism's struggle with kingly power. In the years leading up to 1901 General Conference session, Ellen White had more and more to say on this subject. Here are some statements spanning the 1880s and 1890s. I won't comment on each statement, but I ask that you read them carefully and prayerfully. As the heaven-appointed visible leader of the Israelites, Moses had been connected with that people through scenes of peril, and had borne with their discontent, their jealousies and murmurings without retaliation, or seeking to be released from his trying position. When the Hebrews were brought into scenes of difficulty or danger, instead of trusting in God, who had done wondrous things for them, they murmured against Moses. The Son of God was the leader of the Israelites, although invisible to the congregation. His presence went before them and conducted all their travels, while Moses was their visible leader, receiving his directions from the angel who was Christ himself. St. September 9, 1880, paragraph 5. The Lord is leading his church in these last days, as he led ancient Israel. While he gives them warnings, reproofs, and encouragement through his delegated servant, Christ, the angel of the covenant, who in the pillar of cloud and of fire went before the Hebrew host, is the leader of his people today. Review and Herald, November 2, 1886, paragraph 7. I was shown years ago that there will be dissension and a lack of harmony and unity of action among the workers in our institutions unless all are subject to the authority of God. He will stand as commander if each will obey his directions, but there must also be a visible head who fears God. The Lord will never accept a careless, disorderly company of workers. Neither will he undertake to lead forward and upward to noble heights and certain victories those who are self-willed and disobedient. The soul's progress means the Savior's rule. LT 63, 1886.11. The government of Israel was characterized by the most thorough organization, wonderful alike for its completeness and its simplicity. The order, so strikingly displayed in the perfection and arrangement of all God's created works, was manifest in the Hebrew economy. God was the center of authority and government, the sovereign of Israel. Moses stood as their visible leader, by God's appointment, to administer the laws in his name. From the elders of the tribes, a council of 70 was afterward chosen to assist Moses in the general affairs of the nation. Next came the priests, who consulted the Lord in the sanctuary. Chiefs, or princes, ruled over the tribes. Under these were captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, and captains over 50s, and captains over 10s, and lastly officers who might be employed for special duties. Deuteronomy 1:15. Patriarchs and Prophets 374.2, 1890. Take care.